Today we want to have a look at some concerns with the Deepin desktop environment as was reported by OpenSUSE, causing them to remove the desktop from their distribution. Let's go ahead and have a look at these serious thoughts and see what we think. Welcome back to Switch to Linux, and today we will be talking about Deepin. Now, if you are new to Deepin, it is a Chinese-based desktop and distribution, so both distro. You can download the Deepin distro, which changed a little bit over the years. Was it based on Ubuntu? Was it based on Debian? Was it based on SID? I don't even know what it's based on right now as we record this video. It has changed its package base a few times. It is open source, so people could see the code, so from that front, there's not been a lot of people saying, this is quite terrifying, but I don't know if there's been a whole lot of people looking at it as close. The desktop environment itself is a very nice, very beautiful, very modern and compelling desktop environment. It has a Mac view. It has a Windows type view. It has beautiful blurring. It is one of the most attractive and easy to use desktops I have looked at over the years, but there are some concerns with it. Now, I first looked at this years ago. This is in my old apartment that I was still in when I just started the channel. This is, of course, before I was doing thumbnails. Look at that horrible haircut. That's why I wear hats these days. That desktop you see in the background there, that was a Linux Mint KDE. Oh man, I missed that thing. Oh, that was a beautiful computer. That's what I was using on that computer for a while. But as we looked at it in this particular video, it was a pretty nice desktop even back then, even 8 years ago. Now it has shifted over the years. Of course, I had some deep concerns with it 6 years ago when we looked at it again, and my conclusion was burn it with fire, mostly dealing with the massive EULA. The EULA on this is not quite as long as Windows. I mean, still, look at this. This is a second apartment, but pretty bad hair. Look at that. Ugh. Looked young, though. I don't know. But they have, we covered a lot of what we covered in this video is the EULA, which even included things like, hey, if you disagree with this, just uninstall it right now. And here is very briefly, let me get it. There you go. So this is the Deepin end user license agreement. Now, to be clear, this is on the distribution itself. I don't know if it applies specifically to the desktop environment. Now, we last looked at Deepin just 8 months ago, and I looked at this time here because they were starting to implement some AI features and functions into it. So I wanted to go ahead and just have a brief look at that and see what it looked like. And again, the distribution itself, the desktop environment is nice, beautiful, compelling. It seemed to work out of the box, but there were actually some security concerns with it as reported by the OpenSUSE team. And so from It's Foss News, Deepin Desktop removed from OpenSUSE over security concerns. And we'll do the couple highlights here in the article, but I want to actually go with their actual blog post at OpenSUSE because it's very, very detailed. So it's happening 2 days ago. Well, that's just like 5 days ago from now. 4 days ago. OpenSUSE announced they are dropping Deepin Desktop from the community repositories, citing a lack of package maintenance, consistency, and security concerns. So they said the last draw was when it discovered earlier this year that one of the Deepin Desktop maintainers smuggled a package in called Deepin Feature Enabled, and they did this in 2021. So it begs a question, should OpenSUSE have seen this way earlier? Probably. So OpenSUSE is not entirely off the hook here, but this Deepin Feature Enabled popped up this particular EULA screen. And what was going on here is that the OpenSUSE would not approve packages that were not passing permissions through Polkit properly. And so it kept on going back and saying, hey, you need to fix these things before we whitelist it. And so they basically come up with this EULA. Of course, nobody ever reads EULAs anymore. So it says you must, to install Deepin Feature Enable, you must agree to the following terms of this license. Deepin, dbus, and policy kit security issues. The Deepin Feature Enable will help you to enable all features of the Deepin API and Deepin daemon. To ensure your OpenSUSE is in security, We will disable all the dbus policy kit features for Deepin API and Deepin daemon, as well as the Deepin file manager. But it leads to Deepin desktop cannot works fine. Wonderful English. And some features are invalid. If enable dbus policy kit feature for Deepin API and Deepin daemon, if you don't know what you are doing, please click I disagree and exit this tool and read the post there, which is opensuse.org/portal:/Deepin carefully. Then you can manually run Deepin API dbus installer, Deepin API polkit installer, the other kits. With root to enable these features. The Deepin feature enable doesn't enable dbus and policy kit features for Deepin file manager. If you need them, you need to install those separately. So it gives you all of that in order to install it. So the reason they did this is because certain functions did not pass the security audits by OpenSUSE, and they refused to whitelist them to include them. And so they just smuggled the stuff in the back. Yeah, kind of concerning. So what to expect? For users of OpenSUSE Leap, the Deepin feature enable package will be removed, but the other packages will be left intact. On the other hand, for the new OpenSUSE Tumbleweed releases and the upcoming OpenSUSE Leap 16 release, they will not include any Deepin desktop packages at all. And so that is what they're doing. So they have very, very good reasons for this. So they wrote this very large blog post. Matthias Gerstner writes this May 7th. And it is a fairly long document, as you can see, but it does cover in good detail what's going on here. So they said, recently we noticed a policy violation in the packaging of the Deepin desktop environment in OpenSUSE. To get around security review requirements, our Deepin community packager implemented a workaround which bypasses the regular RPM packaging mechanisms to install restricted assets. So they say this is bypassing OpenSUSE packaging policy via a license agreement dialog. That's what we already looked at. The details, they say, the installation dbus system service configuration files and polkit policies requires review by us. When we are satisfied with package security, we whitelist the respective components. Okay, so the dbus allows the various elements on the software side to interact with the hardware components. That's my understanding. I'm not a programmer or package developer. Polkit, this is what allows you to pass authenticated and unauthenticated commands up and down through. So something that functions properly will only pass root if root is enabled, and everything else will kind of fail because it doesn't have the proper permission. You basically think of it as a permissions container. So we've been in contact with OpenSUSE Deepin Packager since 2017. We have whitelisted various Deepin dbus components. In the meantime, a number of remaining Deepin review bugs has seen little progress in recent years. However, because the issues we pointed out have not been addressed properly. So ultimately, they've been trying to get this in, but they're moving too slowly for Deepin. And so they're just like, we just want this working. And so they're just kind of skirting the security team to push packages in that are doing crazy things like enabling you to format hard drives without root permissions. Like, that's how crazy this is. We'll get into that in a bit here. They said, with the packager decided to try a different avenue to remaining Deepin components to the OpenSUSE, skirting the review requirements. January 2025, during routine reviews, we stumbled upon the Deepin feature enable package, which was introduced in April of 21. So this has been in here a long time, OpenSUSE. What are y'all doing? Okay. Without consulting us or even informing us. The license agreement dialog explains that the SUSE security team has doubts about the security of Deepin, but to properly use Deepin, certain components need to be installed anyway. Thus, if the user does not care about security, then the license should be accepted. If the user accepts, the missing dbus configuration files and polkit policies are automatically extracted into system directories from tarballs found in the Deepin daemon dbus and the Deepin daemon policy kit packages. And so effectively, that's what we already looked at. That's the same image. So for the end user, this effectively means typing Y once during the installation of the Deepin pattern is enough to opt in to activating components with questionable security, which have not been accepted. In fact, many of these have been explicitly denied and rejected by the security team. Not because they're like, we don't like your Chinese stuff. It's like, you need to fix the fact that your file manager allows you to format a drive without root authentication. Okay, that's literally what we're talking about. So a review bug has been running in the Deepin file manager since 2019 without the package reaching a satisfying state. Offering users the ability to run the script to activate the problematic components is less than critical than automatically doing it via crafted license dialog, but still an unclean and questionable approach. Now, here is where they actually covered a lot of the history of where they had issues. So I don't think I want to cover all of these, but this is in 2027, the initial review. They found various issues with dbus method implementations. Most prominently, any user in the system was allowed to run various commands like rfkill with arbitrary parameters as root. Polycat authentication was only implemented in some of the dbus methods, while others were merely a to-do marker to add authentication. Furthermore, Polycat authentication was implemented for some methods was subject to a race condition allowing authentication bypass. All right. So after the initial activity, there was no more progress for 6 months, which is why we closed the bug due to inactivity in December 2019. And in April 2021, the Deepin packager reopened the bug, assigning it to an upstream team. In July 21, we were finally pointed to the proper fixes for the issue, and we granted whitelisting for this specific Deepin component. So the OpenSUSE is absolutely working with them as long as they're working, but they're going for months at a time without addressing serious security concerns. Here's an issue. Here's the Deepin file manager. Services were not only unauthenticated, thus accessible to all users in the system, but the dbus configuration also allowed anybody to own the dbus service path on the system bus, which could lead to impersonation of the daemons. So the daemon did contain some Polycat authentication code, but it was all found in unused code paths. To top it off, the code used the depreciated Unix process Polycat subject to an unsafe way, which would make it vulnerable to race conditions, allowing authentication bypass if it had been used. So anybody could get in through a known security hole. Other Polycat policies were found in the package, were at least being used. One called Polycat action allowed locally logged in users to run user bin USB device formatter as root without authentication. So yeah, let's go ahead and format all of our drives without being authenticated as a root. Let's see, here's a number of different bug fixes. December, they did not receive further notices, so they closed it out. March, they reopened the bug, March 2021, so almost 2 years later, they reopened the bug, only to point out the supposed fixes. Later in October 2022, we moved the discussion for Polycat parts and other bugs for the dbus service component at the time. For the dbus services, we did not receive any response at all. So they closed the bug in December 2019 without whitelisting it. In August of 2021, upstream developer was assigned to the bug who pointed out a partial bug fix at the time, stated that the Deepin's developers had different opinions about the reported security issues without providing further details. So OpenSUSE, we disagree with you. We're not going to give you details about why we disagree with you, but we disagree with you. Come on, it works. Just cram it on into the system, folks. We want to format your USB drives as a guest user, right? All right, so they're getting down now into the recent, more recent history. This is April 2024. dbus service configuration still allowed any user in the system to impersonate the system service. Also, once more, a bunch of newly added dbus methods introduced new problems. One of them, for example, allowed any user in the system to start the Samba system daemons NMBD and SMD. BD. I'm not sure exactly what those two services are. Going back, I'm not a full-fledged on the network guy, but the Samba services allows you to access network shares. So basically, they can allow you to access network shares without any form of authentication. Here's the Deepin anything. This is actually just the kind of like the deep search package. The Deepin Anything package component acts as a backend for a desktop search engine. Given the number of unresolved Deepin-related reviews we already face at the time, we refuse to work on this without additional review until others have been resolved. So they're just like, we're just not looking at it anymore until you go back and fix the other ones, right? Like, don't come to me with with some new thing to fix when you have 16 other things in the backlog to fix. And that's really what is leading up to all this frustration. So in 2023 now, they have a new service. Here's a gap. It's about 2 years since the last Deepin review request. This might be due to the fact that the offending Deepin feature enable package had been introduced in May of 2021 to circumvent the whitelisting requirements. So Deepin's like, let's just go ahead and cram this guy in and we'll just not bother those guys anymore. It's working. But I think what they're doing is they're trying to just, okay, let's get it to work and into the system, and now we'll slowly work on stuff down the road. That probably is their approach. They said it took 3 passes and a year of time, however, for the upstream fix to fix all combinations of input parameters that would allow construction of arbitrary paths. Upstream did not verify and solve each of these on their own, instead only fixed the concrete issues we reported, and when we returned to the review, we found yet more ways to scoop the USR path restriction. All right. So also due to the fact that the arbitrary users could read and store configuration for arbitrary other users, there's a lack of poll-kit authentication and user separation in the instance. So still bad security on PolicyKit. So we found a design flaw in the proxy design, which allowed a local root exploit. Yet, you can find the details in a dedicated blog post we published not too long ago. That's this one here. This is the Deepin desktop environment, API proxy, authentication, bypass. They have a whole article here about how you can bypass authentication inside of it. So they were reported on that. They did not get timely responses, which led us to a one-side publication until Upstream finally expressed their wish to follow coordinated disclosure at the very last moment. And so after all of these issues, these are what leads to the conclusions of the team. The experience of the Deepin software and its upstream during the code reviews that we performed has not been the best. More than once, security issues were reported that have been replaced by new security issues. While upstream stated at times they don't have enough resources to deal with security reports, which is worrying enough, the design and implementation of dbus components often changed radically in unrelated ways. This makes security assessment a moving target. So we don't have the staff to deal with these security issues, is what they said, but they keep on adding stuff to it. This is a lot of things that we covered this in a weekly news roundup last week, where the chief information security officer at Chase, JP Morgan Chase, has said that software as a service is harming businesses because we focus too much on getting stuff out to the market without focusing on the underlying security before we actually get them there. And I agree with that assessment. That's a very good assessment from that gentleman. It's the same thing here. They're not worrying about fixing security issues. They just keep on worrying about throwing in new features and new features and new features. But this is what you get with a lot of the Chinese related stuff. It's just, how can we get it to work? And security and authentication is always an afterthought. If you look at the stuff that you get, that's what you tend to see. And so they do assess here that Deepin does make this a moving target. So the history of Deepin code reviews clearly shows the upstream is lacking a security culture, and the same classes of security issues keep appearing. So again, they just keep on trying to add new features without fixing the underlying security. And that's a dangerous thing. We should always be taking some time to look at security. So the discovery of the bypass of the security whitelistings via the Deepin feature enable package makes a turning point in our assessment of Deepin. We don't believe the OpenSUSE Deepin packager acted with bad intent when he implemented the license agreement dialog to bypass our restrictions. They said the dialogue itself makes the security concerns transparent, does not happen in a sneaky way, at least not towards the users. It was not discussed with us, however, it violates the packaging processes. Okay, my personal opinion is no, they did do it. maliciously. They just wanted their desktop working without worrying about getting around all these guys. I do disagree with OpenSUSE's statement here. I know why they're saying it. They're trying to be diplomatic. I'm a guy who creates videos on YouTube about Linux. I don't necessarily need to be as diplomatic. Maybe that's a problem. Maybe that's not. But I do like to call it the way I see it. And after repeatedly trying to get them to fix problems, they don't want to fix problems. So they did the old Chinese way and figure out a workaround. And the workaround gets around all their things by smuggling packages in, by getting a user to click yes to something they know full well the user's not actually going to read. That's my opinion, based on everything I see. Now, who knows? Is OpenSUSE right here? It's not malicious. I don't know. I'm not saying it's necessarily malicious. I am not saying they're doing this to maliciously get a backdoor spying software in your OpenSUSE. I don't see that. I don't have any evidence that Deepin is really back there spying on you. I just think they're trying to get Deepin into a distribution. The more distributions, the merrier. They're trying to get it in there. And they're just bothered by the security of OpenSUSE. On the one hand, this makes me feel a little bit better about running OpenSUSE, except this thing's been running on their system for 4 years and nobody noticed it. But that being said, at least they are paying attention to security. They are raising some issues and some concerns. I don't think Deepin is doing this to get spying malware in the back. I just think they're doing it just to get the system in, but it raises some serious security issues about what else is going on under the hood. And that's really is what the OpenSUSE team is thinking about. Now, they have provided a way, if you love the Deepin desktop environment and you trust it, they do give us here how to continue using the Deepin desktop on OpenSUSE going forward if you want to. We're not going to go through that. I will have this security post from OpenSUSE linked in the description, so you can read that down at the bottom. You need to import some GPG keys, you need to verify the public keys, and you need to add a repository, and that will enable you to install the Deepin desktop environment. So with that being said, my final takeaways here, the fact that Deepin seems to have a lot of repeated security issues is troubling, and the fact that they're willing to do these underhanded things makes me question using the desktop environment even if you're not using Deepin. Not because I think it's a Chinese spyware that's collecting everything that you're doing. Is it possible? Sure, it's possible. Is it likely? Probably not, because there will be enough people to audit the code. But what is concerning is that by getting around these security issues, they're introducing security vulnerabilities into the system that some other form of malware could take advantage of if they are aware of those such issues. So it begs the question, we know that Deepin is doing this on OpenSUSE. Have every other distribution that has Deepin as an option audited their code more clearly? I think any distribution now that has the Deepin desktop environment as a possibility in the community repositories should very quickly now take a closer look at Deepin, really audit those Deepin codes. It should ask us questions about should we use the Deepin distribution itself, knowing that these are the things, they're not being audited. They can't even hold up to a basic security audit for packaging something into OpenSUSE. The Deepin distro itself is all their work. It raises questions. I must have not had it highlighted, or I skipped over a couple highlights perhaps. But one of the things they say, oh yeah, it's right down here. Components are certainly not fitting for multi-user systems. Even on single-user systems, they'll be weakening a defense in depth significantly. So a lot of these issues with the dbus service and the POL-kit violations, they are definitely making multi-user systems problematic. Now, I have a little bit of a gripe with some of the security though, and I got to say it's a good thing. I figured out how to get around it. But when I was first using Linux Mint, they weren't using. I think it is POL-kit. They weren't using it. So from any one of my users, I could easily get into any one of the other users on the computer and access all the files. But after a while, and I forget which version of Linux Mint it was, I couldn't do that anymore because of these strict user separation policies, which is actually really good for security. It just, it was a little bit more inconvenient for me to get around that. I know how to get around it now, but it does take a little bit of extra work, which is actually a really good thing because security is actually important. We have to cover that. So that's my final thought. I would be personally a little bit weary of Deepin because not that I'm not saying they're cramming spyware. I'm saying that they are skirting basic security policies just to get something to work. And that is not the way you want your computer to run. So kudos to the OpenSUSE team for spotting and making such a very clear post of issues. This will give a lot of evidence and things to look for other package maintainers, for other distributions to have a look at, just so they can get a chance to see. And I would encourage any distro with Deepin as an option to seriously audit those Deepin packages and see what you can do. And the idea is not just to, hey, kill Deepin, get it out of here. I would love it if the Deepin developers would come back, fix these issues, and have a good, solid desktop environment. The more desktop environments, the merrier. And frankly, I think the Deepin desktop environment is beautiful and compelling. It is a great desktop environment aesthetically when you're just looking at it. It's not difficult to use. I like their file manager. I like a lot of the things that they do on the Deepin desktop environment. But the security issues, I'll stick with other ones that are a little bit less flashy to have security. That's my thought. Let me know your thoughts about this in the comments down below.